everyone. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, along with Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, Jillian Turner, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 9 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. This is a Fox News alert. Protesters are taking to the street tonight in St. Louis after a police officer was acquitted of murder for shooting and killing a black suspect after a high-speed chase. Former St. Louis police officer Jason Stockley shot Anthony Lamar Smith back in 2011, and the not guilty verdict was announced today. Joining us now for more from St. Louis is Mike Tobin.
Hi there, Kimberly. We're catching up with the demonstrators right now. Actually, during that last live shot with Brian, got separated from them. So this is a small crowd looking to get to the main crowd. And the activity right now is just a lot of marching. They went up to the interstate. They attempted to get on the interstate. Cops didn't want that to happen. So they had a standoff for a little while, and that effectively diffused. So they're back into the Central West End right now. That's a direction we're headed in. Now, thus far tonight, people are using that phrase, peaceful protest. All protests are supposed to be peaceful. The modifier applies when it becomes a violent protest. And don't worry about that. That's just an obstacle in the road and a skillful cameraman. What happened earlier today, though, right around 5 o'clock local time, they came up to the police headquarters, good bit of passion in them, and a group of the protesters got on top of a police SUV, jumped up and down, broke the windshield on the police SUV. There were some rocks thrown. The bottles thrown were only plastic bottles, but the police then showed up with the riot gear, with the pepper spray, had a big confrontation, a lot of pushing and shoving. 4 police officers had some minor injuries, 13 people arrested thus far, according to Chief O'Toole out here in St. Louis. So that is a situation. I've personally observed some weapons. At least one of the weapons, a fake AK-47, was a fake gun. Some of the other weapons, I can't really tell you if they're real, but they look like an M4. One kid had something that looked like a long rifle. Another kid had tucked into his waistband, I could tell, a handgun. It looked like a semi-automatic handgun. The authenticity of it, really can't verify it while it's all happening so fast. As far as the demonstrators that we see, a lot of them Black Lives Matter demonstrators. We do see some of the kids dressed the part of the Black Bloc or Antifa kids. From a police source, they don't have a lot of intel that national groups like Antifa are descending at this stage on this particular demonstration. But there's a lot of emotion. This is going out over the web. We'll see how this progresses in the future. Kimberly?
All right, we'll check back with Mike. Any breaking news or developments there? Thanks so much. Now to our other top story, another terror attack in London. Now, during the morning rush hour, a terrorist set off a homemade bomb on a subway train, injuring 29 and causing passengers to flee in panic. A manhunt is currently underway for the suspect, and officials have raised the terror threat level to critical in the UK, meaning another attack may be imminent. President Trump reacted on Twitter, calling for a, quote, larger, tougher, and more specific travel ban here in the United States, and said this earlier today.
I want to say that our hearts and prayers go out to the people of London who suffered a vicious terrorist attack today. I spoke with a wonderful woman, British Prime Minister Theresa May, this morning and relayed America's deepest sympathy as well as our absolute commitment to eradicating the terrorists from our planet. Radical Islamic terrorism. It will be eradicated, believe me.
Okay, we're reminded, Greg, of the differences between the prior administration and President Trump, and also trying to come out very strong, using those words again, you know, radical Islamic terrorism, calling them out, calling for the eradication of them. This messaging coming obviously on the heels of some criticism for the president, too, on his immigration policy. It seems like he's kind of reaching out again to his base.
Well, I think, I mean, this is what he's known for. But just to focus on the actual attack, it's another example of why we have to harden soft targets, because we will always be vulnerable. And that includes people. People have to start thinking in training. We trained for earthquakes when we were kids. You know, we've trained for mass shootings as adolescents. The crowd panicked here, and they trampled a little boy, and they hit a pregnant woman and pushed her over. These are natural responses, what happens when people panic. But we need to, and this is how terrorism works. It creates fear, people panic, and it makes it worse. But we need to train and harden the individuals so that they know how to react to things like that. A lot of people call this a failed attempt because no one died, but every one of these attacks is successful because every attack that happens, terrorists learn something from it and they adjust their techniques so the next time the attack is more deadly. This could have been just a dry run. I think that what's necessary, I think these poor, the officials and experts are overwhelmed. I think they need more bomb-sniffing dogs for two reasons. They're efficient and inexpensive at sniffing out bombs, and terrorists hate them because they can't get to paradise if a dog is in their presence when they die. So
I know that.
All right, Jillian,
I learned that today. I hope it's right.
Well, so this terror attack, and Monday was the anniversary of 9/11.
Yes.
It comes around every year. It gives us an opportunity to think about where we are in the war on terror. And I think this attack highlights, as do the ones we've seen in Western Europe in recent months, that really since 2001, everything about the terrorist threat has changed. The way that the United States responds to the terrorist threat and tries to combat it has changed. The battlefield is largely now in cyberspace. The face of these terrorist organizations has changed hands many times. We've seen organizations like ISIS rise and fall. It's not defeated yet, but it's much reduced. The thing that remains the same and that we're still not getting right is the impact that radical ideology still has on large population areas across the world. And I think that's an area where the United States, in spite of our incredible military and intelligence prowess, is still not doing enough. We've got this, I think it's called the Global Engagement Center at the State Department. It's underfunded, it's understaffed. These are the people that are responsible for fighting ISIS and radical Islamic terrorism online. This is where we need to be putting more money, more time and attention, more public political attention. I don't understand why we're not doing that, because it's attacks like this that are so low budget that really highlight, as long as people are attracted to that ideology, we're not solving the problem.
Okay, got it. All right, so Jesse, obviously thoughts and prayers go out to the people in London. It's just that anxiety where you're worrying when you wake up in the morning. Could something happen? Could you be the person or your family member in the wrong place at the wrong time? People relying on public transportation, which now, as we've seen, has become one of these soft targets. Unless they have people on there that are armed and there's some kind of physical deterrent to this type of conduct, it seems like this is the direction that they're going in.
Yeah, Great Britain's our best ally, but they have to get much tougher. And I think in Trump's own way, he was trying to tell them that. No American city would tolerate this kind of repeated carnage, which we've seen over there in London. The majority of Americans agree with what President Trump is pushing in the aftermath here. We want stricter internet crackdowns on jihadi propaganda. We want to be less politically correct. We want more surveillance. And I think 60% of the American public wants the travel ban. So that's all clear. He faced a little criticism today when he pivoted from the attack to the travel ban. And I don't blame him, because all politicians seize on big moments in order to push their agenda. Every time there was a domestic terror attack in this country, President Obama pushed gun control. When you see hurricanes happen, politicians push the global warming agenda. So I don't blame him for that. He also said that Scotland Yard had their eyes on these people and caught a little heat from Theresa May, the Prime Minister. Well, he also said that the London Bridge attack was a terror attack before Scotland Yard had called it that. And he was right. So I'm sure he has great intelligence from our intelligence officials, and the guy shoots from the hip, and we just have to get used to it. You mentioned to Greg earlier, we've had 8 years of the President of the United States wait sometimes 2 days after an attack to call it a terror attack. And if a guy's yelling Allah Akbar, he's from Syria and he's stabbing people, President Obama still really wouldn't say Islamic terror. President Trump will say it. This is why we elected him. We wanted someone who was tough on terrorism. You know what? In 4 years, public might not like that. We could have Pocahontas as president. But right now, we have President Trump, and I think the media has to get used to this kind of tough talk.
All right. So, Juan, your thoughts, your reflections on what's happened in London and how it impacts us here.
Well, just to start by saying, I think it was 29 people were injured. Thank God it wasn't no one was seriously injured. Most of it flash burns from the explosion in the subway. And the second thing to say is that with regard to Trump, he was rebuked by Theresa May. I mean, she said, this is not helpful. The London police said, not helpful. And then you had the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, come out and he was like cleaning up after the parade and said, oh, the president's just speaking generally. He didn't have any specific information. So what we have here, to my mind, is, you know, as Jesse was saying, we know our president. You know, we love President Trump, but goodness gracious, he speaks impetuously at times. It's almost like he's just quick to fire. And you've got to think, it's not a matter of the press, Jesse. It's a matter of our top ally, a key intelligence ally, saying, what are you doing? You are putting us and putting lives at risk by indicating to the terrorists that we have them in our sights or that we know the network they're connected with. We're not there yet. We're not putting that out. We're working this case. This is a live investigation. And so there's some, you know, problem there with that, in my opinion. But I think the biggest problem here is one in which you see President Trump so quick to shoot at anything that fits his, as Jesse was saying, agenda. I don't see that when it comes to white supremacists down in Charlottesville. Oh, no, he isn't slow to say anything about that. And this business about saying radical Islamic terror, that's not solving the problem. Solving the problem, and Trump said this today, by the way, folks, we've got to do better on the internet, picking up on what Jillian was saying. Much better. We harden targets, but we got to fight the ideology. That's the cancer.
Could I just respond to two? There are two cultural points here. This is a far bigger problem than anything that happened in Charlottesville. This is a worldwide ideology, and the ideology, when you're talking about, it's a collision between bitter loners and the Western world. It used to be that people didn't see how others lived. If you were in Pakistan, you never knew what the Kardashians were because there was no way that you knew that. Our Western world is colliding with people who hate that. So that it's not necessarily ISIS ideology. It's just the fact that they hate the West. Mm-hmm. The other thing, too, is that you're supposed to, as an individual, say something after seeing something, especially when the authorities cannot protect you 100% of the time. As you can see, they stopped a lot of plots. They weren't able to stop this one, but they stop a lot. The point is this. If they can't protect you, somehow you have to protect yourself by saying something when you see something. However, there's a cultural blockade there that deems you Islamophobic if you say something when you see something and you might be wrong. If you are wrong, you are screwed. And so when you're on a subway or when you're on a bus and you see something and you go, I want to say something, but you know what? I don't want to end up on a blog being ripped apart. I don't want to lose my job. So I'm not going to. We have to make it okay to say things. And Juan, you know that.
I know
you
that
went through that.
I've been through it. But I got to say, why would you say that this is somehow bigger? It seems to me when you talk about crazed, poisonous ideologies, whether it's the white supremacists or I don't
Islamic.
How many people have neo-Nazis killed in the last 10 years compared to ISIS?
Last 10 years. Oh, you want to
Islamic radicalism is everywhere.
I don't think
I think you're having a moot argument.
Yeah.
There's no bearing on reality in this kind of argument. You know, which is worse?
I don't think.
I don't think that helps.
But Juan started it.
I'm sure of that.
And
That's
if you're
true.
feeling bad,
I'm blaming it on Juan.
if you feel like you're getting torn apart on blogs, Greg can help talk you through it.
Yes, that's true.
exactly.
I'm a blog therapist.
In the meantime, Juan and Greg are going to go to their separate corners for a little timeout. All right.
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome. Up next, a top Trump administration official is talking about a military option to deal with North Korea. We're going to tell you what that's all about when the 5 returns.
This is a Fox News alert. Back now to the protest underway in St. Louis after a police officer was found not guilty of murdering a black suspect after a high-speed chase back in 2011. According to local reports, the demonstration has closed portions of the Kings Highway in St. Louis. For more, let's go to Will Carr. He's in St. Louis. Will?
Hey there, Juan, and we're in the central west end of St. Louis. It's a pretty trendy, hip area. Keep in mind that these protests have been going on for now about 11, almost 12 hours throughout the course of the day. They started in downtown St. Louis, and they've shifted over here. Throughout the course of the night, as the sun has gone down, things have remained very peaceful. But when the sun was still up, we did have some clashes between protesters and police. 13, I believe, 13 people were arrested. 4 police officers officers were hurt, although not hurt so badly that they had to be taken to the hospital. I want to point out to you something, Juan. Here, you look over on the sidewalks and you see the windows here. They're not boarded up. That is not the story in downtown St. Louis. In downtown St. Louis, the business owners were very concerned about what might happen tonight here with all of these protesters, especially they knew that this verdict was going to most likely come down tonight. Now, this is a story that hasn't had a lot of national media attention, and in fact, the shooting happened back in 2011. But that being said, after you had Ferguson about 20 minutes north of us, these racial tensions have really been percolating under the surface of this community. In fact, one business owner in downtown St. Louis told me earlier today that this is really a divided community. You have the white St. Louis, you have the black St. Louis. So when you have a not guilty verdict like you had earlier today, you're going to get this type of reception coming out here. So far, and again tonight, though, things have remained peaceful. Juan.
Will, thanks so much. Be safe. We'll continue to monitor the situation in St. Louis and bring you any major updates. On the other side of the globe, North Korea defied the world and test-fired yet again another missile this week, leading to the latest round of international condemnation. Here's what President Trump said earlier today.
The regime of North Korea, which has once again shown its utter contempt for its neighbors and for the entire world community. After seeing your capabilities and commitment here today, I am more confident than ever that our options in addressing this threat are both effective and overwhelming.
The Trump administration is keeping all options on the table, including the use of military force.
There's not a whole lot the Security Council is going to be able to do from here when you've cut 90% of the trade and 30% of the oil. So having said that, I have no problem kicking it to General Mattis because I think he has plenty of options.
For those who have said and have been commenting about the lack of a military option, there is a military option.
Well, in fact, Jillian, what he said right after that was, but it's not what we would prefer to do. Jillian?
Of course not. The military option when it comes to North Korea is the worst case catastrophic option. Nobody wants to go there. Our allies and adversaries across the globe don't agree on anything when it comes to the threat of North Korea, but everyone wants to avoid a potential for nuclear holocaust, right? I think what's happening right now is we're at an inflection point, and the U.S. has a more crucial role than ever before to play when it comes to getting the UN Security Council members that voted this Monday for the most robust, harshest set of sanctions ever implemented against a foreign nation, make sure that they uphold, that our allies and adversaries on the UNSC uphold those sanctions. We want the North Korean regime to feel as much pain from this as possible. I think that's the best hope right now of hedging against the military option, which benefits everybody.
Jesse, next week we'll have the UN General Assembly meeting here in New York. President Trump will be up here. In fact, this weekend he's meeting with several world leaders out at the golf course in Bedminster, New Jersey. What are the options in your mind, Jesse?
The military options, or are you talking about his address
Any
to the
option,
UN?
any option, because he said on Monday after the UN sanctions were passed, not a big deal, which was a little bit surprising. It seemed to undercut Nikki Haley. Today he's talking military, but
Listen,
McMaster says that's not what we want.
I agree with Jillian. The military option is so ugly. I can only think of one scenario, a targeted and tactical nuclear strike, and that would have to be so overwhelming and so simultaneous that they would not be able to retaliate at all. I mean, that would make Hiroshima look like child's play. And even if they do retaliate, you're looking at a missile launch to the DMZ where we have about 40,000 U.S. troops. They could hit nuclear reactors in South Korea, radioactive fallout. They could hit our greatest ally in the region, Japan. Guam's a target. Heaven forbid they get off an ICBM that puts San Francisco in the crosshairs, Los Angeles in the crosshairs. So I've said this before. I think the only way to really solve this are three things: coup, assassination attempt, or you have China bring so much pressure on the North that they finally back themselves off this cliff.
But Jesse, the problem right now with the nuclear strike option is that, like, this missile that was launched today came from right next to the international airport. outside Pyongyang.
You're right,
So
you'd have to
there's no option where
stomach
hundreds of
severe
thousands of
civilian
people.
casualties,
Yeah.
and no one wants to do that, obviously.
Right, and there's
Kimberly,
also,
what are you thinking?
Also, South Korea. I mean, they're in a big problem here, but they want the U.S. to get more aggressive. But when you think about the consequences, and everyone's going to say, okay, we need to arm up. And the last thing, believe me, that China wants is a remilitarized or nuclearized Japan as well. So that's something to consider. But this is why everyone needs to get on the same page and, in fact, be, acting and working in concert against North Korea to shut this down. I mean, the problem is that now we're seeing with more alarming frequency, they're doing these missile tests. They're actually working. They're actually being able to hit, further away in terms of their range, which is highly problematic. So something that used to be sort of theoretical before is now become actualized under the present day circumstances of what we have going on. And I agree with you, the collateral damage and civilian loss of life would be, tremendous. I mean, all North Korea needs is like a 1 hour, window to be able to hit South Korea.
Yep.
And yeah, it's not just
Seoul.
the U.S. lives, but it's also the civilians in Seoul, and it would be catastrophic.
And now I want some psychological analysis from Dr. Gutfeld, because I don't get this guy. I mean, what does he want, Greg? What is he up to?
North Korea is like the Lena Dunham of countries. Always trying to do or say something to remain trending on Twitter. Whenever it gets quiet about North Korea, he's got to shoot something in the air that lands somewhere, and then he's back on Twitter. And then we have to start talking about how horrible it's going to be if we do something. I'm actually fairly optimistic about what's going on here. I do think he's not irrational. I think the good news is the world is coming around to our way of thinking. It used to be that you had to be nice and reasonable, but if you were a hardliner, that meant you were unreasonable. Somehow Trump and the people he's surrounded with have created this compatible hardline and reasonable, which is kind of new and kind of refreshing. We see new measures endorsed by China and Russia. That's a good thing. There was a rumor that China was going to cut off the crude oil to North Korea, and their gas immediately tripled in price. That stuff is real. We have to start focusing on that sort of stuff, the crude oil that the company needs. A lot of these other stuff is going to hurt the population in North Korea, the sanctions. But the fact is, there's some real progress here, and I said it before. We're boiling the water to make an egg. We might get an egg out of this.
I just worry that since Fire and Fury, he seems to be like sticking his finger in our eye more. But all right,
Maybe that will work.
All right.
We haven't tried it before.
Hillary Clinton's been unloading all week. That you know. She's not mincing words on her loss to President Trump. And she sure didn't hold back her thoughts about the president in her latest interview. You're going to see that right here next.
Hillary Clinton continued her blame tour last night, but this time she may have finally crossed the line. Roll the tape.
I'm hoping that on the really big issues, there's enough authority to be able to restrain and contain the president. That's what we all have to hope, because I think this president and some of the people around him pose a clear and present danger to our country.
Wow. So that's a loaded statement, Greg. Now, the book, Clear and Present Danger, wasn't that about a crooked politician who used the phrase clear and present danger to justify the CIA taking someone out?
That is an amazing question. You're right.
I knew it.
But here's the thing. She offers no evidence for this. I would tell her she has to walk this back, but I fear she might trip.
Jillian, what do you think? This is, I think, over the line, even for Hillary.
I think, look,
it is over the line.
Yes, it is. And when it comes to this book, she's taking a lot of heat for writing a book that's like very focused on herself at this time, right? I think everyone's entitled to present their own version of history and how things unfolded for them. But I think what really needs to happen now, in the wake of the 2016 general election, is the Democratic Party needs to write this book. They need to really do some self-reflection and figure out what happened. She's not necessarily the one that's on the dime for that right now. If they want to move forward and win elections in the future, they're going to have to do this.
And Juan, I remember we had this conversation after the Scalise shooting about both parties need to kind of tone down the rhetoric. Would you consider this toning down the rhetoric? Clear and present danger to the country?
Well, I don't think she's Jack Ryan, but I don't think she's coming in to save the day here. But I've heard this. I didn't just hear it from Hillary Clinton. I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I hear it from people who
You're
are
in the same bubble as
Republicans-
she is. You're in the same delusional bubble.
I'm saying Republicans say it's a good thing we have McMaster, Mattis, and Kelly there. It gives people more confidence.
That's because they're
The
great.
axis of adults.
Okay, there you go. Axis of adults. So people are saying this all the time. I don't know why you guys are saying this is over the line. Clearly, it is.
Well, Kimberly, when you say the President of the United States is a clear and present danger to the country, I think that suggests that people need to do something to reduce the threat and the danger.
That is true.
Yes.
Right, but I mean, them's fighting words,
That's
right?
right,
That's the
exactly.
bottom line. So it's rising to the level of hysteria that's suggesting that there's a call for arms or a call or a duty to do something about a clear and present danger, that
Right.
there's some kind of exigent circumstance that bad things are going to happen unless they act to stop it. And then
Right.
she goes further to say that the people around him are basically acting in concert and are co-conspirators with the president to commit this clear and present danger. No, that's what the suggestion
I
is.
think she said
That's what
contain him.
Oh, okay, to contain it, but she's complaining and saying that the people around him aren't any good either, that they're problematic.
She had strong words for Tillerson at the State Department. She said he hasn't reached out. He's just about budget cuts, and said that the National Security Council
Well, she
has
also
been
criticized the
imploding from
president's,
day one.
president's
Okay.
daughter, too.
And to be fair, the National Security Council was in clear and present danger at the beginning of the
Yep, that's what
administration
she
with
said.
General Flynn at the helm.
All I
So
know is that if
that's
Mitt
not
Romney
entirely
had said this after he had just lost to President Obama, people would have said he'd been calling for an assassination attempt. It's happened again. Another CNN host threatens to assassinate President Trump. Unbelievable. Find out which one next.
Earlier this year, CNN cut ties with comedian Kathy Griffin after she posed with a severed head that bore the likeness of President Trump. Well, now another CNN personality is also alluding to President Trump's death.
If Trump and Kim Jong-un were going to have a bit of a summit to try and mend relations, and they wanted you to cater, what would you serve?
Hemlock.
Hemlock, as for those of you who didn't know, like me, is a poisonous plant that can be fatal if ingested. So Fox News got in touch with Mr. Bourdain directly, who apparently, jokingly, by way of response, said that he meant to say kale instead of hemlock.
right.
So, Greg, what do you make of this? If we get specific for
First
a
off,
second.
first
but
off-
if we get specific, is this better or worse than what Kathy Griffin did? If
It's
you had
off
to
the cuff.
choose.
I just don't trust a skinny chef. That's like a fat trainer. I don't get it. He eats a lot on his show, but he never gains weight.
You must
Look,
eat at Chipotle.
Yeah, that's true. Right through you. They have the carpool lane. Of your intestines. This I would do an awful thing to Donald Trump is now passé. It's supposed to be edgy, but it's incredibly predictable. He's supposed to be a rebel. He passes himself off as a rebel, but he's like the rest. It's all groupthink now. He should be resisting this kind of mentality. He's now about as edgy as an episode of Antique Roadshow.
Oh, but it's so good.
Well, there you
I
go.
love
course you
Antique
like it.
Roadshow.
Well, you know what?
All right,
case
Jesse,
closed.
you like kale. What do you think about this?
I don't know. I think wanting to hurt the president's a job requirement over at CNN.
Oh.
First, you have Kathy Griffin. I think this is right below Kathy Griffin.
below, okay.
And
Thanks for
then
answering
Fareed
that.
Zakaria, I think his name is. He likes the assassination play. I think CNN's parent company put that on. I don't know what's going on over there. This is also another example.
Go investigate.
Of the media not covering this story. Think about if a Fox News anchor said something jokingly about assassinating President Obama. That would be the head of the New York Times on all the network newscasts. But because this is one of their own, they're going to cover up for him, and they won't do this. Who was the actress the other day that said...
Jennifer Lawrence?
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence said that the hurricane was punishment for us voting for Trump. No one covered that except on this channel.
And it was true.
But here's,
God.
here's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Tell me if you think I'm wrong, Juan.
Oh, boy.
He's not a journalist, right? He's just a TV celebrity chef. Can he say whatever he wants? Or does he, because
skinny
he's
one, I
on
might add.
CNN, does he have to
Razor
toe the
thin.
line and be, neutral and not politically correct or
Look,
whatever?
these are explosive times when it comes. I mean, President Trump is so active on social media. He's such a media presence. This week we had Jamil Hill over at ESPN get in trouble for saying he was a white supremacist. And you know what? I think you have to say, when you're speaking about the President of the United States, You should be sure what you're doing, but you should not be talking about violence of any sort of any time. I don't take Bourdain that seriously. I agree with you. He's not a journalist, and I don't think he was saying it all that seriously. But I do think the right loves the idea that, you could say, oh, there's hypocrisy, or why isn't CNN doing something to him? And what if it had been Obama? I get tired of it at some point.
Well, go to sleep, Juan, because I'm going to keep mentioning it. I know, yeah, he was joking. It was just a bad joke.
Oh, great.
That's all.
We agree then.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Kimberly, what do you
Yeah, I like the show that he does. I think it's interesting. But, I don't like the comments. I don't like Kale either. I definitely don't like Hemlock. But, why is it always like open season on President Trump and people try to be like so cool by saying derogatory things and something like that? I don't think people should be better than that, and they know better. But I don't know what's going on at CNN. Something in the water, I guess.
Assassination chic.
Jesse Waters.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it sounds like the moral of the story is
There is no moral.
choose Kale, not Hemlock.
There you go.
Can we agree on that?
We can agree.
Yes.
All right.
All hail Kale.
All hail Kale. Don't go anywhere. Everyone out there, Facebook Friday's coming up next.
High Plains Drifter. Facebook Friday, batch of questions. Let's begin. This is from Holly G. What is your creative outlet that helps you develop your best self? Excuse me, I almost belched. Jillian.
What did I tell you?
Yep.
I mean, get it together.
What? I had something to eat earlier. No, I didn't. Go ahead. How do you develop your best
I'm
self?
already my best self.
Oh, that's nice.
There's not really any room for
You stole my line.
Jesse rubs off on everybody. Jesse,
Yes.
do you have any creative
Confidence. Very confident.
Do you have any creative outlets?
Well, I don't know about creative, but I started
don't
doing
answer.
yoga.
Did you?
I did a little yoga the other day, and I was very limber, surprisingly, and it gave me a nice peace of mind. And afterwards, the yoga instructor said that I was honoring myself. So I honored
Is that what you
myself.
were doing?
It was my practice.
Terrible. Juan, what's your creative
Jillian
outlet?
is Jesse's best self? Is that what I just heard?
Juan, you always hear the wrong thing.
Oh, it must have been a mistake.
Then he puts it in his translation.
Yeah, that's what it is. So I think that writing is the most challenging intellectual thing. I think it's like intellectual exercise to the max to write something that's worthwhile reading. But if you're talking more generally, I would say it's really hard, given this business that we're in and the media and all that, to develop your spiritual awareness. And people talk about being in the moment, being, someone who is committed to helping others, to knowing others, to feeling, having a larger sense of life. That's a challenge for me.
What about you, Kimberly?
Creative outlets?
Yes.
Shopping.
No, it's really not shopping. I don't enjoy shopping. Is that
Really?
strange? Yeah, I just like to have what I need to have, and that's that. Leave it to Gwen Martyr. She takes care of the clothes around here, does a fabulous job. Creative outlet, really enjoy reading.
Oh, reading's fun.
Reading's fun. And I like
The mental.
good movies, okay?
Yes.
And I like food, like going to dinner.
That's not creative. That's not a creative outlet. I'm calling that's BS. KJ.
Well,
Whoa! Holy smokes!
I didn't answer the question. Creative outlet.
well, I don't paint.
Eating is not a creative outlet.
I'm very creative the way
I eat too. I go to the movies.
Reading.
That's what I
Reading
do
is
for
creative.
fun
Okay,
and
fine.
whatever. Creative. I'm
Writing
not
is
a
creative.
painter.
You know what I do?
What?
I usually get up in the middle of the night. I'll get my dog and go for a long walk in Central Park.
How is that creative?
You should see the walk.
It's the way he walks.
Yes.
He sachets.
And the irony of it, I don't even have a dog. I just tell the police officer I had a dog, and I'm looking for the dog. It always works. I lost him over here in the bushes, officer.
That person's like, I'm never
Ew.
sending them another question again.
Robert G., do you have any pre-show rituals to get ready for the broadcast? Kimberly.
All right. So, but it's the same thing. People know me so well already now.
What, do you
I eat salami. Yeah, I like
You do not eat salami.
Yes, I do. Trust me. 100%. I love it. I eat it every single day. But besides that, then we go to hair and makeup to pull it together. So, and prepare. And I do talking points and type out notes.
What about you, Juan? Pre-show rituals?
Well, because this show's at 9 o'clock, I cannot watch my baseball team play. So my pre-show rituals, I check the score. And then after the broadcast, I check the score again. So it's a little bit like a bookend thing for me.
What about you, Jesse?
I mean, I'm in Kimberly's food court as well. I'll order a pizza on the set or in the green room. I'll eat shrimp. Gutfeld loves the smell of that. Maybe get some Chinese, something like that. So I'm mostly eating.
You've been having Indian food lately, too.
Yeah, did you smell that? It's delicious. It's right
I'm a huge
across the
fan of
street.
chana masala, I gotta tell you. What about you? Any pre-show rituals?
I just like to read and take notes for stuff. And if on the rare occasion I get to join all of you lovely folks on the 5, I enjoy bickering with you in the green room.
That's fun.
But the best is when you walk into the green room and there's Greg and Dana. And Dana, what is she doing? Live streaming you?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
what
what
they call
it is. I don't know. My pregame.
You do like the Facebook Live.
No,
Dana likes that.
do 17 shots of tequila before every show.
This explains
can tell.
everything.
Yes. We got time for one more, right?
She just cut you
All right,
off.
this is quick.
All right.
Phobias. This is from Tommy H. You got a phobia, Juan?
Yeah, you know it. If I tell you, you're going to torture me. I'm not going to mention it again. You know I don't like elevators.
Really?
And it's so odd because you like getting high. I joke. Kimberly?
Oh, my God.
Kimberly, phobias?
We're gonna get
You're scared of
canceled.
nothing.
No, I don't know. I'm not really. I mean, I've had like snakes on me and
Oh.
tarantulas, and I don't know.
All right, Jesse, phobias?
Squirrels, beavers, possums, raccoons.
What?
Snakes, pigeons, pretty much
What
most
is
animals.
going on?
Why are you
What-
afraid of pigeons?
Was that
Oh,
an
they're
inside?
dirty.
There's an
What a
inside.
Jillian, quickly.
Pitch black.
What? Dark,
black.
darkness? Interesting. That's very interesting. So you sleep with the light on?
No, but it just can't be pitch black.
So you don't use
have a
blackout
nightlight.
curtains?
No.
Wow, that's
interesting.
fascinating.
Interesting. I only have one fear, and that's death.
I thought you were afraid of me. Remember those dreams where I was like a robot?
You are death.
Oh.
You are the Grim Reaper.
Yes.
They thought it was Steve Bannon, but it's you.
You know it.
All right, one more thing next. Boom.
Well, it's time now for one more thing. And Greg, I hope you're prepared.
I'm so excited. Our show, the Greg Gutfeld Show, is on tomorrow night. We had a big bump for breaking news, but we're on tomorrow night. We got Jason Chaffetz, Joe DeVito, great comedian, Kat Timpf, Tyrus. Now it's time for this. Greg's Corrections. Isn't that cute?
You stole that from Jesse?
All right. All right. So the lawyers here are telling me that I have to say this. I don't really want to, but I will. Last week, I did a monologue on the Southern Poverty Law Center. They took issue with me, with some of the statements made on the show, including a joke that they do virtually no law. But in fact, they say they spent over $1.8 million in 2015 on out-of-pocket case costs for litigation on behalf of their clients. So we must make clear now that SPLC does in fact, quote, do law, unquote. SPLC also uses offshore investment vehicles, which it says is common for nonprofit organizations to do. That's great. In my opinion, they hurt decent people like Rand Paul, Hirsi Ali, Majid Nawaz, and Ben Carson, for whom they actually apologized, by labeling them as extremists. And to me, that still sucks.
All right, Greg, thank you for that.
You're quite welcome, Kimberly.
Really well done also.
Thank you.
Juan.
Well, congratulations to the hottest baseball team in America. What a night, what a week, what a month for the Cleveland Indians. Last night, they won their 22nd straight game in dramatic fashion.
Ripped to right, down the line, fair ball! Around third, Ramirez will score! It's a walk-off for number 22!
They now have the second longest winning streak in Major League history, right behind the 1916 New York Giants, which were seen by Greg Gutfeld. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
I think
excellent.
I was there.
I thought you'd say that.
All right. So I want to take a special moment here to say congratulations and how proud we are of Kyle Nolan. She was an intern here at the Fox News Channel, and then she went on to work here as an assistant and helping with the production, and certainly going to miss her. There she is with me at Hofstra at the Trump-Clinton debate. She did an outstanding job. She worked very, very hard here and is now going to Fox and Friends, the fabulous show in the morning.
Boo!
Greg's very jealous, and we're super excited for her. Her first day is going to be on Monday in her brand new position. Kyle, we will miss you, and we're very proud of you.
What time does she have to get up?
Probably early.
Seriously,
Probably early.
that's brutal.
Aw.
You're such a downer.
All right, Jesse.
All right, so there's this 11-year-old boy. His name's Frank Giacchio. All he wanted to do was mow the White House lawn. He has a lawn mowing business. He started that up himself. He wrote a letter to the president. When the president went over there to greet him, he just ignored him. Just kept on doing his job, kept on mowing the White House lawn. Finally, the president did catch up with him and had a few nice words to say.
That's nice.
All right.
This is Frank. He's going to be very famous. Going to be a Navy SEAL someday. Going to do great things for our country. Thank you, man. You take care of yourself, okay?
And Frank's going to be on Water's World this weekend at 8 o'clock in a very hard-hitting interview.
Excellent.
And you're going to see that there Saturday night.
Okay, we won't miss it. All right, Jillian.
Shout out to the intelligence community punching back against Harvard University's decision to award and honor Chelsea Manning with a fellowship this year. The director of the CIA, Mike Pompeo, and former deputy director of the CIA, Mike Morrell, showing there on the screen, resigned from Harvard and decided not to give a speech at Harvard in protest of this decision. They felt that it undermines the United States' core values, the Constitution, the rule of law, and honors somebody who's treasonous and was a convicted criminal. So shout out to them for doing the right thing. It paid off because Harvard's now rescinded that offer.
All right.
Excellent.
Okay, yeah, we did that last night.
Yeah.
You know, and the story that generated a
point
lot
that
of
out,
buzz and a lot of outrage. People felt that it was, wildly inappropriate, and now you see a pretty swift reaction.
I think it was due to us.
Power of the Five.
I think the Five did that.
Greg
As
likes
we
to take
control,
credit for
we control
everything.
all news.
All right, set your DVRs. Never miss a crazy episode of The Five. Hannity's up next.